Hello, everybody. Hopefully, I can get this to stay up. Oh, hey. I feel like this is a lot closer than I thought it was. We're going to react to a video that's kind of old. Not that old, but in YouTube years, it's old. It's the debate between Farha, Jazmen, and then Michael Knowles. But what I'm going to do before we do that is I'm going to show you guys how I put subtitles on a video that I'm going to react to. We did this like a year ago. Figured we could just do it again. I'm not sponsored by them. I should be, but I'm not. I should be. So, oh, wait. It better pop up or we're fudged. I'm working on my swearing. Okay. Where is it? Window. I don't like that at all. I don't like why is it not doing that? Never mind. I'm just going to do it really quickly myself then. If it would work. I use the software Descript. D as in dog, ESCRIPT. And this program was a secret weapon that Tony, my former producer, got me onto. And essentially, it allows you to take a video, upload it onto their software, whatever, and then it gives you the entire video in like a Microsoft Word document. So you can, if you're recording a video by yourself and you remember you said the word or phrase dog ate food, you could literally search it and it'll take you right there. You can delete swear words as long as you know the swear that you said. I will go through like all of them. I'll type them in. It'll show me like you've said this 273 times. Remove all. And you can shorten word gaps. You can get rid of I like, so then, but I don't know, different like filler words. You can get them all erased straight away. You can, what else can you do? If you're recording through the software and you suck at looking at the camera like me, it has a feature. It's like AI detect or something. And essentially, if you're looking down like this, it will make it look like you're looking at the camera. Pretty dope. Pretty dope. Another thing you can do with it is, let's say you have a really good voice and you want to, I don't know, do a voiceover for like Aaron Clary's books. All you would need is the PDF file of his book, upload it onto the software, do a little script reading for like, I don't know, 5 minutes, and it will automatically generate that text, the entire text, into your voice. So, how much does this cost a month? $15. It's lit, y'all. It's lit. I personally have the $30 one just because I do really long live streams, so I can do more transcription. But $15 can get you pretty far. Like I do like an hour stream every day for a month, and I'm just meeting the $30 mark. Like I probably could get by with the $15 one if I'm honest. But so yeah. It lets you select all, add in captions, and then go ahead. It also has really good stock footage. If you've ever tried to, let's say, make a free video and you had to constantly go on like Pixabay or whatever to find even remotely what you're looking for, this you can find way more, if not a lot more R-rated stuff, if that makes sense. I know if you try to look up like a pill bottle, it won't pop up for Pixabay. Ask me how I fucking know, but so there's that. It has a lot better music for free. No issues when you upload to YouTube. I don't know, it's pretty good. Okay, let's see. I got that. I'm going to shorten the word gaps on this one. It probably isn't that much because there's so many people, but you can also speed up your text. Like I talk really slow. I'll put it on like 1.09x. It's a good one. It's not like iMovie where you have 3 choices. Technically, you can type in the number, but I didn't understand that when I first used iMovie. It also has an entirely new wait, did I do 2 on accident? It has an entirely new layout for how you edit. Well, it's not that new. It came out 2 years ago, but it's if I had to like what do you call it? I guess you can edit all things on one roll. If you understand editing, that would make sense to you. I really don't. So throw the whole bitch away. Jesus. Come on. My computer's been so slow. I need to get one of those cords that go right into the modem. I'm just so far away from it. It'd be so ugly in the house. Oh, it also has a feature. Composition is over. Now you're going to be a hoe right now? Not the time. The script. Okay, so technically I'm over 3 hours, so I'm going to take out the beginning. Just like really quickly. But, and if you're like, I download videos and it takes me hours. This has a feature where you can publish it before you export it. And the publishing, I don't know if it's got to probably lower the quality, but not in the same way we understand quality, not like 4K, 720, not that shit. It does something else, probably in the metadata that it compresses or some shit. But it's pretty dope because I can publish this now, and a 3-hour video would probably take me a good. Well, I have the newer MacBook, thanks Rolo, but it would probably take me a good amount because I don't have a Lacy. I need to get one of those. You guys have a Lacy alternative? Lacy's an external. She an external hard drive? I don't know. She's like the big version of those US of stuff backed up. I've been trying to clean it out. There's got to be a better way to do it because every time I clean it out, I will find these long ass live streams I've never downloaded, like just there. And I'm like, I thought I deleted all of these. Okay, so it's rendering. Oh, it also has a new feature, which I haven't used yet, but it will clip. How do you call it? You know, like a switchboard switcher. Let's say you're in a studio with 2 people sitting across from each other, and every time one person talks, camera goes to them, and then the other person talks, camera switches to them. It has a feature that will switch depending on who's talking. That's pretty lit. That's fucking lit. Especially if you don't actually have a switcher and you're doing it in one camera take. Pretty dope. Pretty dope. I should be sponsored. I don't know why I'm not. If you're somebody that's like, I want to start a side hustle, what should I do? This is a program that's really good to do clips on. Because it's not the same as like an AI doing it for you, but you have all the tools you need. La la la. Mm-hmm. We need music in this batch. My goal is to DJ in a nightclub I've worked at in July. You think I could make it happen? Probably not. We'll try. I need gear. That's what I need. I need to get this software. I'm so mad because have you guys heard the girl? I don't know if y'all are on TikTok. I don't know. My demographic's like 30 to 45, but there's this girl that's like, I think I just came up with the song for the summer. You've probably heard me sing it. I'm looking for a man in finance, trust fund, 6'5", blue eyes. And I heard it when it wasn't even 100 views. Like literally it came up for me right away. And I was like, oh my God, I would so remix this. Looking for a man in finance, trust fund, 6'5". It's been stuck in my fucking head. And now everybody's coming out with their remixes for it because she wanted a DJ to do it. Shout out to Louise gifting 5 memberships. Not all heroes wear capes. Okay. Bartender in Mexico. My passport is my passport that I just got redone. I had to get it really last minute and it came back I got in trouble. It came back not like that. Like it came back, something was wrong with the whole process. Shit was high stress. So technically my passport's only valid until August. I bet you I could probably play a set in Mexico. I know some people that started playing sets out there at these really big festivals. I'm like, why do they allow amateurs? I want to go. Do you know how to hit a crossfader? Do you know how to hit a crossfader? Yes. How you know that? Fader cell. Should super chat me. I'm looking. I want to walk down. I want to walk up and down Ocean Avenue in Miami. Like, need money for Botox. Someone would do it. Need money for Botox. Some girl did it on TikTok. Do you guys watch Carolina? I want to meet this bitch. She seems like somebody I've worked with. She reminds me of this Serbian chick who was so fucking funny. She was like the epitome of a gold digger, but just like she could get away with it because she was so good looking. Like I've only seen probably 5 women in my life that I can't stop staring at because I'm like, are you real? Like what? She was one of them. But she was so bitchy. So like, she's like equivalent to the girl I used to work with from Belarus who like if a man, like they don't take shit. Like if a guy was like, let's split the bill, she'd be like, so you want to be friends? Like, I love that energy. Fire festival. Oh my God. Okay, let's see if this is done. Rendering. Why is it going so slow? Just as I'm talking all this great stuff about it. Fail. I think I forgot to take something out of the metadata because now it's going to take a while. It's fine. Just throw old bitch away. Okay. I'm just going to pull it up without the subtitles. We can use the subtitles on another one. Yesterday, all I could think about was now I understand why the domestic violence rates amongst lesbians are high as fuck. Kidding. We're gonna do another feminism one. One of my favorite pastimes is roasting feminists. I've actually written a lot of debates, not a lot, but a good amount of debates for feminists. So there's only some that I'm like, you're like, okay. But there's a lot of them that maybe it's just the debate in me, but maybe it's just YouTube debates, honestly. But it's like, do you know your opponent? like when I would write these debates, I would literally, like whoever they were going up against, I would watch hours upon hours of their content. And some of these debates, I'm like, you guys would all avoid shitty shit like that if you just knew your opponent. I don't know. It's a pet peeve of mine. So this one should be better. I listened to like the first probably 10 minutes in the background. I enjoy listening to Jazmen. I enjoy listening to Farha. They're probably 2 of the only feminists that I can really like not give shit to right away. I might give shit to the ideas, but like themselves, they're intelligent. They're not going to make me want to shoot my, you know what I mean? I gotta be careful. It's been a minute. Michael Knowles, when I first listened to him on whatever podcast as a guest, not necessarily like his own debate side, I found him to be a little cringy. I'm not gonna lie, but he's grown on me since I've seen him with what was the girls? Nala? We like Nala. She's struggling in life, but we like her. She's a nice girl. Okay. She just converted, which I think is a beautiful thing. If she fucks up, she fucks up. Okay. Let's see. I don't know. But when I saw him with her, I was like, I really like this guy. And then we saw him on something else. We saw him where he was good. Was it Ben Shapiro? No way. I don't know. Something where I was like, oh shit, this guy, like, he's like an encyclopedia. He knows his stats. And I was checking them while he was like live, whatever show it was. And I was like, it's rare that I come across people like that can just pull stats that you don't think that they would even need or something like that. I think that's really cool. So we have him with Jazmen, Farha, they do OnlyFans, and then they also are content creators. Yes. Trying to think about one else. Yeah, that's really it. Then we have Pixie. You guys probably remember Pixie. She was on Pearl's show. She's the blonde one with the bangs. And then, yeah. So that's my intro.
Welcome to a special debate edition of the Whatever.
And good old Brian. Got good old Brian. Are we quiet? Turn it up. I'm just going to skip right into boom. Let's see. Actually, is there a way that I can? No, I'll just do it that way. I was like, do I have it open so I can see time?
Rates of alcoholism in the world. You think of Denmark, Norway, Iceland in particular.
So
I don't know how happy they are.
Now you're changing, but if we're going to just go by what makes people happy, I don't know if I think there are arguments to be made about like community and those things may make people less happy. But this idea that's because women aren't having children, when we also have data, a lot of data that shows children, especially in the United States, has the biggest happiness gap. And then we're seeing that other countries that are more feminist are also not having, like, if you compare like Scandinavian countries to like the East, like my parents are immigrants from Iran. Iran has really high unhappiness levels. A lot of countries exactly. So I don't know if you can say that this is causing that, right?
Nordic countries also have much more homogeneity, which is correlated with political happiness. But so there are all of those differences. Mm-hmm. But I think the point about children making you unhappy and the point about leaving the cave, I think those are both a little bit of a cope, because they're belied by the fact that if it were just that women were coming into their own now and they were recognizing the oppression of which they were not conscious previously, then why would they keep getting less and less happy? You know, at a certain point, aren't you supposed to turn the corner and become more happy in your independence? But that's not what's happened. For 35 years, it just gets worse, and worse.
Can I rant for a second? Because anytime we talk about these feminist things, we always have to go into a happiness metric, and it kind of bothers me. I'm a miserable bitch, right? But I'm living a good life. You know what I mean? Like, not to say that it's all about me and solipsism or whatever, but I think happiness is probably not a good metric to test anything about your quality of life. Like I've had depression. When I would go to a psychiatrist and say I have depression, what we focused on was like executive functioning. Like, how is your executive functioning during the day? Are you brushing your teeth, showering, all the personal hygiene shit, blah, blah, are you eating, blah, blah, blah. And I don't know how we could translate that, but I think that would be a better metric. Like, because it's like, are you happy? It's like, you could be happy. And well, I just don't, I feel like happiness is fleeting. Is it? Happiness fleeting. Unclear. Hedonistic happiness in its essence is brief joy and pleasure. It's like, I don't know. Because like when I function at my best, I can find pleasure in things like cleaning, right? But when you're not at your best, maybe not, but I don't know. Like, I feel like you could be like, there's got to be a word for like stable or like homeostasis or something, like not a lot of fluctuations. And I feel like when we talk about happiness or we talk about pleasure, you're spiking in dopamine. At least that's what I think. And as somebody who used to study neuroscience, I don't know if that's just how my brain thinks. I find that when you're looking for happiness, like you can find that in a drug. So then is it really, am I getting too philosophical about this? I don't know. Let's just keep going.
Relative men. And then for children, you look over the past, 70 plus years now, 74 years, since 1950 to present day, the marriage rate has dropped by 60%. And the birth.
Also, not to mention like hormone levels. Like put a 1 in the chat if you've ever had your hormones imbalanced to some regard. I know girls, we've dealt with it when you've gone on birth control or whatever, but even not on birth control, like you fluctuate a lot, like to then also try to meet this happiness metric. It almost sounds delusional. That's the best way I can describe it.
Rate has dropped by 50%. So just looking at the whole society, we are having many, many fewer children than we were before, and yet we're much less happy.
Even like
sure,
places like Pakistan are having less kids.
Sure, I'm just pointing out. You're saying that having fewer children makes you happier, and I'm saying we're having many fewer children, and Americans are much less happy. And you see this even beyond just random surveys.
You can't link that.
I kind of want to push back on this idea that we've gotten more unhappy as time has progressed, because at least to my understanding, what's happened in the last 20 or 30 years is an increased awareness of like mental health and what that means. So it's not necessarily that people were really happy before and now suddenly are miserable. Yeah. It's just that now we're actually having data where people can talk openly about their mental health, unhappiness, and not be as stigmatized as before. Mm-hmm. If we look at the 1950s and even like housewives around that time, we see like there is actually like a huge rate of like narcotic usage and basically like prescriptions to that level. So I'm not necessarily, if I would go as far to say, we've got.
If you guys watched yesterday, Andrew Wilson and Silver Rose, I think her name was, we only came in like halfway and I already got triggered because of this this thing. Like, what did she say? Andrew was like, well, what do you suspect is the reason for women being unhappy or being on psychotropic meds or something? And the feminists' response was like, I think doctors overprescribe. And I just like threw my headphone type shit. I'm like, are you fucking, it's the patriarchy. That's what Andrew said. And Pixie right now is saying, it's kind of hard to tell what exactly is the correlation to why happiness is lower, maybe because of the stigma now. And it was one of the reasons I gave. She's giving it now, and she's saying like, the women at the house were on they were abusing narcotics. And so like, this is an answer that I'm like, okay, this is a good one. Because you can't just tell me the doctors are overprescribing. Like, that is more congruent with somebody who is like anti-big pharma or something. Yeah, you can be on both sides, but I want to know what you think. Because when you start to veer off, to me, that tells me that 1, you haven't done debates, or 2, you're a fence sitter, and I'll just roast you for it. I just don't like them. Okay, pick a side. You can take it back later. That's like my philosophy about it. It's like, because at this point, you're just, to me, fence sitters are trying to appease two audiences when honestly, they just piss us both off. Am I wrong? Do you guys feel that way? As somebody who's like written debates for people, I avoid that so much. The best way I put it is, those tests that you used to take when you were younger, and it's like somewhat agree, disagree, somewhat agree. There was something that my professor told me, and it always stuck with me. It was like, pick a side on the far whatever side. It wasn't even political. Always pick one on the far, but have nuance. But never pick the nuanced position. Does this make sense? What's the purpose of that? If I have, like, looking back at it now, if I had to guess, it's because you're more congruent with your worldview. Anytime you try to fence it on ideas, it's like, dude, get the fuck offline and go think about it. You know what I mean? Like, go sit with it. It's just,
unhappiness as time, we've gotten more unhappy as time has gone by. I would say more likely, oh no, we've been able to properly report, measure, and assess mental health as time has gone by.
And medicate.
Listen, I'm very inclined towards your view that social scientific studies are bunk. I mean, there's a major replication prices. I think it's all ridiculous. I will cite those social science stats when they serve my argument, because why not? That's what we do these days. But I agree. I'm skeptical of measuring happiness and all the rest of it. But on the mental health point, I think here we do have some pretty firm data, and it contradicts the argument you're making, which is right now, 1 in 5 middle-aged women in the country is hooked on antidepressant drugs. On any given day, they're taking them. Women are 2.5 times as likely as men to take these depression drugs. It is ubiquitous at this point.
That's because men are less likely to seek treatment, but they're the ones that need it the most. And I'm not talking about like men need therapy. I'm not talking about that. Most of the severe mental illness, like the ones that probably, if I had to pick, cause the most disruption in your life, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and whatever the other one would be. Those disorders are more likely to happen on the Y chromosome. Well, actually, they're more likely to happen on the X chromosome, but the way that it works with like females, because we have 2, it cancels each other out. So although men are less likely to be on psychotropic meds, we have a higher population of homeless men, which they're either in jail or homeless, and they are severely mentally ill. You want to get rid of homeless people? Fix the mental health institutions. Like, bring back asylums and watch that clear up real quick. Men are more likely to, or men are less likely to even go to the doctor. This is why you will see men in marriages live longer. It's because that woman makes them go to the doctor. They're more likely to seek treatment, which makes sense, honestly. Aside from, like, I don't know, if you're a family guy and you used to ride motorcycles, you probably are going to be less likely to get on one. But that's one of those situations where it's like, I don't know. But I don't like this argument that's like, well, men are not on them. It's like, but men need them more than women do. Women are more likely to seek treatment. Not to say that men are crazy at large. It's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, when certain types of individuals choose not to go to a doctor and get meds, it doesn't just affect their life. It affects everybody around them. The caretakers, the strangers. Look at the girls in New York that were getting to the head. You know what I mean?
And the rates of taking depression drugs are going up. It's getting much worse. So if we're not getting less and less happy, why do people keep taking more and more depression drugs?
No, why were housewives in the 50s downing like a bottle of wine at lunch every day? I'm just saying. Yeah, now
I'm not so sure. I mean, these are anecdotes.
We're supplanting self-medication now with actually like medically backed drugs that actually help women with their mental health issues.
I don't know that
it's also help. Now that when you're sad, you just go to the doctor and they give you antidepressant drugs. I don't know.
Not to mention, when we're talking about women on psychotropic meds, something that we leave out is the age. And the age that most women are on them is also around menopause. Okay. Like I said, hormones are a bitch. But that's what's going on. Okay. Yeah. You could say that women are going on them younger and younger. But to me, when I see this, it's like, wow, somebody's taking their health into consideration, whether you believe in pharma or not. Somebody's doing the due diligence to make sure they are functioning. It's the ones that don't take them that piss me the fuck off.
How much more depressed people actually are, other than the fact that they're just dishing them out to everybody.
And they're dishing them out more and more and more. Sure, you can blame the pharmaceutical industry or the medical industry. I'm just pointing out, one in order to argue against these social science statistics, one has to just turn toward unfalsifiable anecdotes and memes. The housewives were all miserable in the 50s. They were secretly, drinking behind their husbands' backs. But I don't know, maybe they were, maybe they weren't. All I have are the data available
the data
to me,
is just saying that more people are on antidepressants. It's not telling you why. It's not telling you what caused it. It's not telling you.
Depression, presumably, is causing it.
That's what we're debating here, is what could have caused it. You're saying, it's
no, but I'm not saying, maybe they hate their husband, maybe they hate their kids, maybe they don't like the weather in their town.
Like, I think ADHD is a great example of this. Anyone now can just be like, I have trouble focusing. Does everyone have ADHD, or are people just getting these drugs? Like, these are questions that we should.
I would say that more people are being diagnosed with ADD because of the way that they're brought up, not necessarily their parents. I hate when people blame everything on the parents. Listen, I understand that parents have a responsibility, but like, most parents are good. You know what I mean? There's only so much you can do until it's the child or young adult has their own free will to do so. It really bothers me that people just go ahead and blame the parents. I don't know. But Torshaa, can we have an open panel discussion about internet personalities discussing human nature in the process, propagating their own cause? Yeah, we could do that. We could probably do that today. Do middle-aged women get on TikTok, cry for attention, or do they really need help? I think we live in a society that we've never lived through before. Internet came to us like that. Of course we have more ADD. And ADD is an interesting one because people maybe dabbled with Adderall in like their college. That's who has the biggest opinion, which I think is irrelevant. Some people have dabbled in it. Some people have seen people get addicted to it that didn't actually need it. You're going to see an increase in people with ADD because of the way that all the systems work together, and internet and everything else around them. Parents only have so much control. Eventually, it's a part of ADD is like the underlying thing. Like, most people probably have ADD to some level. Some it doesn't interfere with the type of job they have, but for a lot of people it does. So it's like ADD, like, people are like, they overprescribe those drugs. I think they underprescribe them, if I'm being honest. I think they underprescribe them. I think, like, considering how technology came to us so rapidly, ADD being the only like real issue is like not that bad. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. It's like a maladaptive sort of behavior. I think when parents don't medicate their kids, sometimes in certain situations, they do them a disservice. I was the only one that was not medicated when I was younger, and I'm the one that struggles the most with executive functioning. Granted, I'm almost 30 now, so it's starting to like calm down, but like my sisters and brother were on it, got off of it, and they've done better. Like, it's crazy to me that people see medicating their kids as a bad thing. If you have ADD in your family and you're medicated when you're younger, it can help create better habits, and with your neural pathways still really active. So when you get to like, let's say 25, when they start to settle, that's kind of your behavior. You can't really change much. But if you're not medicated and you got all that shit going on and you're trying to cope with it, do you guys know that more kids that have ADD that weren't medicated as children go on to develop substance abuse disorders? That's wild to me. So if you medicate them when they're younger, they're less likely to fall to alcoholism, which is crazy. That is a big deal. My family members don't take the medication anymore. I still have to, just because I'm trying to erase bad maladaptive behaviors that stuck with me before medication. So there's a case for it. Just saying. I don't think when we talk about like, just one of my bigger pet peeves is when we talk about the medication thing, but we'll keep going. This isn't about ADD. ADD as fuck.
Should ask before we jump to a conclusion.
No, I agree. Look, I think that they're pathologizing a lot of ordinary aspects of human nature. But I think part of the reason that we do that is because we're so radically misinterpreting human nature, which brings us right back to feminism. The clearest example of this is
basically giving. So I used to study pharmacology, actually. And one of my bigger pet peeves, and I don't blame anybody for this, I blame documentaries that talk about it if I had to blame anybody. But people are like, oh, it's only one branch off of being meth or whatever. Guys, let's say that a molecule was 2 circles and a branch, okay? Let's say that meth was 2 circles and a branch with a little... That little changes this structure entirely. It might look kind of similar, but those are 2 very different molecules. And so when I see these documentaries, they'll be like, it's just one thing off of being this. And it's like, yes, so is fucking cyanide, King. What are you talking about? It's actually one of those like inside jokes that we would have in college, because people would think that they were, because they look so similar. Guys, I don't know if you ever took a test in this study, but if you try to pick the answer that looks the most similar to something you remember, it's not right. It's not right. So is it giving meth to children? Guys, somebody with ADD, it calms them down. I don't know a better way to describe it. If they don't calm down, they probably don't need it. You know what I mean? Like, people are like, I want my kids to have, I want them to become into their own, what they're good at without the medication. I'm pissed at my parents, to be honest with you. I give them shit for it all the time, with love, obviously. But I don't remember my childhood because I was ADD. I don't remember anything before 25. Nothing before I was medicated. And I find that to be really sad. I remember every year that would pass, I could not remember the shit we learned fucking 6 months before. Once I was medicated, it was like I could remember everything that I learned moving forward. But there's a struggle. But I'm just saying, like, I think a lot of times when we talk about medication, it's one of those things where I think it's up to the parents. I just do. I don't think the government should come in. I think the parents know what works best. Quite honestly, if I were ever to have kids now, I'd be very diligent or very hyper aware when my child has ADD, because they probably will. Now, the reason why I don't want them, but it's kind of up to them to decide if they think medication is a good course of action. But I'm telling you guys right now, just as like a case study, all of my siblings were on it when they were younger. They don't need it now. If I was there, I wouldn't need it anymore. So now I'll be taking meds. We'll see for the rest of my life or not. Is this a job I could do without meds? Probably, but like not well. I have a lot of, like, dude, the amount of times a boss would say, I told you to do this, and I genuinely thought they were lying to me. It's like laughable. Just saying. I think parents know best.
Transgender argument, which is all anyone ever talks about these days. I'm frankly sick of it. We know that men and women are different, but that shows
not yet.
A major confusion about human nature. If a man can become a woman, then we have been really...
Torshaa, do you think you are now able to function at a high level without meds? Not really, but I go on and off. Like, I'll be prescribed a certain amount, then like peel it back if I have less on my plate type shit, which there's ants. Go away. I think about if I was ever pregnant, how I would function without medication is, I don't think I could.
Wrong about anthropology for a long time. And most reasonable people know a man can't become a woman. But that error in human nature goes back much earlier than transgenderism. This is why I have pity for the feminists who are trans-exclusionary radical feminists, because they don't realize that it was their own ideology that led to this. The premise of transgenderism is that men and women are basically the same, so much so that one can become the other. But if that's true, then that has to come from somewhere. And where it came from was the redefinition of marriage, to say that a man and a woman is the same as a man and a man is the same as a woman and a woman. And that comes from the sexual revolution, and that comes from feminism, which says a woman needs a man like a fish needs a bicycle. Yeah, I agree. These errors in human nature can lead to all sorts of problems.
Did you say transgenderism is people thinking that there's no differences, and why would they need to transition?
That's a great question.
I don't think that's what transgenderism believes, that there's no difference between men and women.
Transgenderism believes that men and women are so similar that one can become the other. Which is different than the feminists, to say men and women are so similar that a woman can do anything a man can do. But transgenderism takes that principle to the extreme, which is men and women are so similar. They're not complementary. Sex is not immutable. It's not an inseparable accident of being, as an Aristotelian or St. Thomas Aquinas might say. But no, it's actually just kind of a social construct. And it's so socially constructed that I can go down to my doctor and have him reconstruct my chest, and all of a sudden I've magically become the opposite sex. That error comes from feminism.
Okay, before we pivot to transgenderism, can we go back to the happiness feminist conversation
Sure.
and tie it up? So I wanted to ask you, do you think that should be the ultimate good and the metric for which we base our justice system and our just overall societal progress on, is self-reported happiness?
Well, I don't know even what you mean by societal progress. I mean, justice is a habit of virtue that inclines the will to give to one what he deserves, right? So it's about deserts.
Right.
And so we protect certain rights and we enforce certain laws, or at least we used to. We don't really do that as much in this country anymore. And an aspect of political justice would be human flourishing. So when we talk about happiness, I'm very interested in happiness, but I'm interested in happiness in the way that Aristotle's interested in happiness, which is eudaimonia, a way to live the best possible life. And I think that we can know something about that through our faculties of reason, which are objective, and if reason weren't objective and at least somewhat reliable, we couldn't have self-government. Now, the way that happiness is often used in our modern culture is just
hedonism.
Is hedonism, like the utilitarians, right? Just means getting pleasure and avoiding pain, or is just totally subjective, to the point where you say, well, don't yuck my yum. What's de gustibus non disputandum est. Maybe I like this and you don't like this. Well, sure. I mean, restaurants have menus for a reason, but there must be some limiting principle here. We must know something about what is conducive to human happiness. And if we don't, then how do we have self-government?
So I want to go back. I agree. I just don't know if self-reported happiness is more congruent with the subjective reports of happiness, or that eudaimonia that you're referring to.
Sure, it's just the best we've got.
Well, and also
I totally agree.
Something you said in the beginning about individualism, do you prefer sociocentric countries? Do you not love America and the?
What do you mean sociocentric?
Like countries where, you're part of the problem with feminism is so focused on the self. Well, I think that is one of the cornerstones of Western civilization, is instead of being.
It's a very liberal view of Western civilization.
Yeah, which I think is what makes Western civilization so wonderful. We are one of the only, I think we are, the only one founded on individualistic rights, principles that we.
I don't think we really are founded that way. I think that's what people say we were founded on now. But, you hear a phrase like liberal democracy. That's the popular way to describe our country now. That phrase appears basically nowhere in the English language until the 30s. Then it jumps a little bit in the 40s. It really doesn't take off in English literature until the 80s. America, the Founding Fathers didn't think of us as a liberal democracy. They were influenced by some Enlightenment thinkers, John Locke and Montesquieu say, but they were also influenced by the classical tradition. And the classical tradition is one of the common good, not in the communist sense of that. But again, they thought the common good was best pursued by having individual rights instead of that's one of the reasons we founded ourselves on a separation of church and state. You have the right. We were not founded on a separation of church and state. Yeah, I mean, we can get into that. I think sure. It's incidental to this point, but it appears in no founding document. There's one errant letter from Thomas Jefferson to a friend that mentions the phrase, and the Treaty of Tripoli makes some little knock on Christianity to appease the Muslim pirates who were capturing our sailors. But when the First Amendment established no church at the national level. The reason for that is not that there was a firm separation of church and state. It's because there were already established churches at the state level. In many states that persisted for decades after the Constitution.
The only reference to God in the whole thing is that you can't have a test for political office. They purposely left it out. You're saying that that they didn't mean
no, they didn't
to
leave
found
it
this.
They refer to religion explicitly, and they say we won't have a church at the national level because we have churches established at the state level.
It says that? Where does it say that in the Constitution that we're only doing this because we have churches?
Not only doing that, but we can see it in history and in the ratification debates. That's why in a number of states for decades after the ratification, you had established churches. And this changes through 19th century jurisprudence, unfortunately, but that has nothing to do, obviously, with the founding of the country. Furthermore, you have in the national anthem, which also comes from the 19th century, the notion that this be our motto and God is our trust, which is from a forgotten verse of the Star-Spangled Banner. You also have it in our money. You also have it in the benedictions and the invocations of the Continental Congress and the Constitutional Convention. So you also have it in the speeches of George Washington. And so, John Adams says that the American government will be based on the Christian morality. John Jay, first Chief Justice of the United States, says the same thing. He goes even further.
Yeah, and I'm sure there's a bunch of quotes I can pull out from the other side. You can.
There aren't really.
Franklin. Yeah,
there aren't. There's one from Thomas Jefferson.
God took the Bible and cut out every reference to the supernatural and kept the rest for wisdom.
Thomas Jefferson did make a commentary on the Bible and his views were a little odd, I grant you, but I've already granted to you that in a private letter, Thomas Jefferson advocated for a separation of church and state.
And our Constitution does, right? There's there's a separation of church and state.
Where?
You have
the First Amendment.
Where do you see?
Congress shall make no, I can pull it up, we can read it word for word,
right.
But it is there. We didn't just all
Let's just read it.
This. Yeah,
listen, I didn't go to law school, so.
Okay.
While she looks that up, one of the other questions I wanted to get into.
Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting free exercise thereof.
Right. So now where do you see a separation of church and state? There?
Well, when you say Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, that is that separation.
Right. And so what is the Congress?
The federal government, is that what you're saying? So you're
it's
saying
it's the lawmaking body for the federal government, right?
Yes, but if
before the incorporation doctrine,
if the state of California starts to be like, actually, in all our schools, we're going to start enforcing Christian ideology in our public schools, that would be unconstitutional under this First Amendment.
In fact, that was the way that basically all schools operated in the country until the middle of the 20th century.
Until the Supreme Court said that you can't have
prayer in schools and you can't teach the Bible.
Because of the First Amendment.
Well, no. The middle step was the incorporation of the Bill of Rights to the
okay,
states.
Sure, but that's been incorporated unless you don't want that part.
Right, but you're just saying the country was founded on the separation of church and state. I'm saying that wasn't even brought up as a matter of jurisprudence until many decades later. And then it wasn't enforced in schools until a century after that.
Yeah, because no rights were, right? That's what the incorporation.
No, I think
guess
there
I'm
were
just confused.
rights.
Do you believe the Bill of Rights is like a founding document or not?
The Bill of Rights is a list of 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution.
Do you believe it is a founding document when it comes to basically the United States as a whole?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So then, to me, I don't understand why the conversation is continuing, because if you believe the Bill of Rights is integral to the founding of this nation, and the Bill of Rights, the First Amendment, states that no religion shall be.
Yeah, I think you're misunderstanding what that phrase meant to the people who wrote it and the people who lived under that government.
It just seems to me, where would the misunderstanding be?
I think you're misunderstanding that the Bill of Rights did not apply to the states at the time, and the lack of an establishment of a church at the national level does not imply that there cannot be an establishment of a church at the state level, which we know for a fact there was at the time of ratification.
I guess I am a little bit confused, because I don't understand if the Bill of Rights is part of the federal basically legislator, right? It's part of the federal law.
But we have a federal system.
But the whole point of creating the Constitution, and according to the Federalist Papers as well, is that, we need some overarching law that, goes throughout the nation, so that way that we can be a united nation.
Not exactly. So federalism, right, refers to the principle of subsidiarity, to the view that there would be different levels of government. Frankly, all the way down to the individual, right, and the family and the community and the state and the national government. So certain powers and rights were reserved to the federal government, but they were relatively small at the ratification of the Constitution. And then many rights and laws and powers were reserved to the states, and then some were reserved to the people.
So do you think it's bad that the First Amendment now applies to all the states?
Let's try to keep it a little more focused on this. So I have a question for you guys. One, do we live in the patriarchy? And if so, and I want everybody to respond, do we live in a patriarchy? And if so, is the patriarchy good or bad? We'll start with Farha, come this way, and then we'll have Michael.
I think it's such semantics at this point. As of now, I'm going to say I don't think we necessarily live in a patriarchy. Do I think women are marginalized in a disproportionate way in relation to men? 100%. But would I use the term patriarchy as a blanket term? Not necessarily.
Yeah, I guess it depends on how a person is defining patriarchy.
Well, let's maybe start off by defining patriarchy.
Okay. If we're defining patriarchy as a system of power where men uphold most of governance and social power, I would say that there is an argument to be made that we currently live in a patriarchy. Whether that's good or I personally am of the thought that that's bad, but yeah, it depends on what definition you guys want to use. I'm open to it.
Do you guys concur with her definition of patriarchy?
Can you repeat it? Sorry.
Basically, it's a system of power where men hold
most of the capital.
Yeah,
the social.
Most of the capital, social, political power.
So obviously we know historically this is true, and if we're looking at a global level, are we going to like refine it to like United States, because these are going to be very different conversations.
And West, we could also
in the West. So I would
West.
say like, and you see this, that like it's more prevalent in countries that are poorer, that have less technological advancement, as industrial machinery became a thing, and education and all that. And so now I don't think like in the West, I'm not going to sit here and say like women don't have equal rights. I think some of that history in certain ways, like in maybe culture and our perception of men and women is still here, but no. And I would say that it hurts men and women to the same degree in some ways. Yeah, I would say that.
Okay, so Farha, you don't think that there's a patriarchy, or are you unsure?
I think the word patriarchy is a bit harsh, and I don't know if I would apply it to how we live in the West now.
Okay, but you two do believe there's an
argument to be made depending on what level you're talking about when it comes to power, or how much power you have to establish patriarchy.
Michael.
I guess I kind of think more than you do that we live in a patriarchy. Not as a matter of law.
Yeah.
The law says we don't. The law, if anything, is inverted. We're closer to a matriarchy, except we don't have kids anymore, so there are fewer mothers. But as a matter of practical living, I think we still do live in a patriarchy. I think men wield probably more power than we ever did. It's just in a very perverted way. So men, wield the power to have casual hookups. Women statistically tend to not prefer casual hookups. Mm-hmm. Men tend to like them quite a lot more, and women prefer a longer lasting relationship.
That's what I would agree with. I think
marriage,
that's what I meant by cultural currency. I think men have the monopoly on like the cultural zeitgeist,
Totally.
and then women move in lockstep to like men's desires in the male gaze. So I would agree with that.
Yeah.
In terms of politically, I don't know if I would agree as much, but I agree with that definition.
Totally. And so, the irony though is that all of that sexual revolution came about because of feminism. But it didn't really give women, I think, what they thought they were going to get. I think if anything, it gave men more power. I remember thinking about this many years ago when I was in college, and the hookup culture was really burgeoning. Mm-hmm. I thought, is this the greatest trick that men ever played on women? Mm-hmm. That these women who call themselves feminists think that they're going to be empowered by letting men just use them whenever they want and then cast them aside and go sleep with some other woman. Girl power.
I completely agree, and I actually don't think women are the culprit or feminists are the culprit today of hookup culture. I think it's more like neocons, tradcons, pickup artists, the one who says that you need to unpack the female psyche by like...
Traditionalists don't support hookup culture at all.
And I think
say as a proud traditionalist.
Yeah, I would say that also there's a distinction between the moral question, like if you're a woman and you hook up, like that's part of what the sexual revolution was there to do, is to give women autonomy, to be able to consent to things, to not have a scarlet letter, attached to them forever because they decided to do a hookup. And then the other question is it healthy? No, not the same.
Of course they do.
If you look at social attitudes,
a 304.
Yeah, but if you look at social attitudes in the last 20 years on things like casual sex, basically it's moving in this direction. The whole reason you have a show is because most people think like me and you have something to fight against.
I don't think so. I think I have a really popular show because a lot of people are living under our cultural zeitgeist, but they realize that it's wrong. And
Some people, but if you look at polling and stuff, especially if you look at where like the institutional power is, like in media and academia and stuff, like we have that power. We definitely definitely influence the culture. And if you look at polling and you look at like 30 years ago, 40 years ago, how people felt about casual sex. So I agree that there's a moral question and what's actually good for you. And the truth is there is a small number of people, like women tend to have more restricted sociosexuality than men do, but there are some women.
What do you mean by sociosexuality?
Sociosexuality is how open you are to casual relationships. There's like an inventory, and they like look at your desire, your behavior, your attitudes towards it, and men typically are more open to it than women are. But there is some like, there's.
Thank you for the super chat. Keep your girl off OnlyFans, one shit at a time. Louise, do all women truly look for a relationship though? I would argue most women when they enter their early 20s are looking for a husband, but then some guy fucks them over and they all hate men and say they don't want them anymore.
Like 10% or 5% of women who still, and I don't think there's anything wrong with those women going out and doing that, but I do think we need to put more of an emphasis on like, okay, the moral question, whether you're a whore if you do this, that's separate from, is this good for you? Is this going to make you feel good? Is this what you really want?
Is it separate?
I think it's separate.
Why would it be separate? If morality is concerned with what is right and what is wrong, and we are rational beings that recognize that some things are better than other things, then wouldn't it stand to reason that if you do more good things and fewer bad things, if you pursue more virtue and less vice, that you would be happier and flourish?
Maybe, is eating a donut immoral?
It depends if you've had like 5 donuts already.
Well, okay,
then
we just have
probably
a different, like to me, I don't think like eating fast food is immoral. It may not be good for you, but it's not immoral. And there isn't like this stigma associated with it where it's like, oh, nobody, like,
No, sex is obviously, I think, even more fundamental to human nature than donuts are. And I like donuts plenty. But, sex is very, very important to human nature.
That's true.
In part because the action is what propagates the species, or in our sterile age, does not propagate the species. But, you're a trained lawyer. Passed the bar exam, and you have spoken publicly about how because you've made other career choices, you really can't work in the law. A firm would fire you. So it would seem to me, putting aside the justice or injustice of that fact, that there is still a major stigma associated with sexual
But a lot of firms would actually hire me over you, probably still in 2020.
I don't have a law degree.
No, but my point is that some of the things you say are so controversial that with how I think I saw a little bit clip of your last thing where you said like Yale would like deny you even went there.
I think they want to burn my diploma.
That's my point.
That's a very liberal place.
Is that society is shifting and we're becoming more okay with things like sex work, but we're still not there 100%. But we still are very quick to cancel misogyny, and I'm not agreeing with this.
I wouldn't say Yale is representative of the broader society, though. It's a kind of I love my alma mater.
If we're talking about law firms, if we're talking about good like big time law firms, like they would have a harder time.
Wait, just a clarifying question. So you're thinking, broadly speaking, people will find a conservative political pundit more objectionable than
in academia,
I totally agree.
In academia, in higher education, and in like corporate America,
Okay.
I think you're probably right about that. Tells you a lot about the society.
Yeah, you can argue that, but to say like there are firms out there that would still take me over you.
But in reality, look, I mean, it's a funny line, and there is a lot of truth to that. But
it's funny.
A lot of these videos that go viral from this show, in fact, and in the broader like red pill manosphere stuff, it's women who are being shamed for their sexual behaviors. Putting the justice or injustice of that aside for a second, those videos get a lot of views. Those attitudes are still very, very prevalent. And I think it's because no amount of feminist indoctrination is going to alter basic aspects of human nature. And I think men broadly don't want their wives to be promiscuous. And look, everybody has a past, and I think there's all sorts of redemption and repentance, and I think that can all be great. But no one, as La Rochefoucauld said, hypocrisy is the tribute vice pays to virtue. No one, I think, really deeply desires that, and I don't.
The men who watch the show are going to selection bias there because they're going to be more likely to not desire that. They're probably going to spend more time on the internet. There's all these.
It's a very popular show, though.
But like this idea that men want a body count of 0 is not really replicated, I think, in normal society. That like they may not like you. Obviously, there's a spectrum here. Like your girl doing porn is different than having 3 bodies, right? Like different, there's gonna be different levels of men who are okay with one and not the other, but we do have a culture war for a reason because there is enough people on this side who are like, actually there's nothing wrong with having casual sex. Actually there's nothing whatever about doing OnlyFans. And I think tradcons can be super happy living a tradcon life, but you guys are the ones telling us we can't be happy and there's nobody out here on our side.
No, look, we're observing certain facts of society and mentioning them. And, but also we're recognizing recognizing that the liberal view of society, that we're all just individuals and, don't yuck my young man, that doesn't really work because we live in society. So, I keep bringing up the trans thing because it's just the clearest example of all these different topics we're talking about. The pro-trans argument was, just let me dress up in a skirt. How does it bother you? I'm doing it in the privacy of my own home. Stop, yucking my yum. Okay, fine. Okay, well, if I'm going to wear a skirt, you're going to call me Shelley. All right, Steve, I'll call you Shelley. Fine, whatever. Oh, okay, and if you're going to call me Shelley and I'm going to wear a skirt, then I'm going to go use the women's bathroom. Now, hold on, Steve. Sorry, Shelley. My daughter goes into the women's bathroom. Well, I'm a woman, and I say I'm a woman. You have no damn right to say that I'm not a woman. Well, no, I do have a right to say you're not a woman. I do have a right to suggest that you not behave like a weirdo in public. And I do have a right to say you get out of my daughter's bathroom because I've got faculties of reason and I live in society. And to quote John Stuart Mill, who's one of the most important liberal thinkers of all time, in his essay on liberty, he points out, we want a lot of protections for privacy, but there are not really any totally private vices. If a guy is just a big drunk, and he just drinks all the time. Maybe he does it in his own home and it doesn't bother you, but then maybe he neglects his family and his family can't eat, and then maybe he doesn't go to his job, and maybe he doesn't pay his taxes, and maybe he doesn't contribute to the community that he lives in. And maybe we have a right in the political community to put some limits on individual autonomy because it's degrading to individuals, and you get all the individuals together.
Like the video if you haven't liked it already. We're yelling at each other in French right now. This is lit. The chat is popping like usual.
That's your society.
Yeah, I don't know. I just kind of want to push back on the idea that basically being trans is the same as being a drunkard. And I think the reason why is because
I'm not saying they're the same. They're just both similar. A bit deviant and suffer defects of will and intellect.
Okay, I guess my question to you is, when does something deviant become harmful? Because there's a lot of deviant behaviors out there. I don't think most of them are harmful. I don't think most of them are bad. But obviously you think that there's something bad about being trans and being drunk enough to do the analogy. So my question is, when does deviance become harmful?
And do you believe it should be enforced through law, or are you just talking social? Do you think we should put in, because there's a lot of rights that we hold up even when they're free speech. People say mean words, but we still are the right is so important. Guns, they
sometimes we have limits on speech.
Of course, I think I agreed with everything you said. There should be limits. The question is, where should those limits be and how should they be enforced? And that's my question.
We should probably arrive at them through prudence and very carefully. Okay. I don't think there's a right 5 bullet points on a napkin answer to this, as some ideologues do. I think we have prudence for a reason, and it's the my dear, it's the consummate political virtue. But also, when you say should it be enforced through social norms or through the law, I'm not sure there's a total firm distinction here. It's very fashionable of the libertarians to say politics is totally downstream of culture. So, sure, that's true in as far as it's true. But also the law is a tutor. And so the law creates certain incentives and disincentives. If you're going to punish certain behaviors, you're actually going to get less of that behavior. And if you encourage certain behavior, you're going to get more of that behavior. So it comes back to the transition.
Well, I mean, there's still a big difference. I actually like what you guys do. I watch it because I like to hear different opinions. No, I like to listen to different opinions and stuff, but I have no problem with you getting on and trying to advocate for getting rid of things like no-fault divorce. Now, if you guys pass the law, I think you should have the complete right to do that, convince people, but passing the law is a very different thing.
Well, you'd have to pass a law if you're talking about a law, right? You're talking about, right?
But I think it's much different to try to get people to not get divorced or advocate for that position.
Well, look, I think everybody, unless you're the most hardened radical feminist maniac, you don't like divorce, right? You're not saying we want more divorce.
But I think people should have the freedom.
Right, so you're merely talking about the right. And so I guess my question then is, put aside legal divorce for cause. What is gained by no-fault divorce? What's the good of that?
Oh, there's a bunch of good when it comes to no-fault divorce. Previously, when we had fault divorce, people would literally have to lie or commit vices in order to be able to get divorced. So whether it was
why don't they just not get divorced though if there's no fault?
The problem is if they decide to not get divorced, usually that leads to higher rates of unhappiness. It leads to people having more tension with it.
Higher rates of domestic violence
in their marriage. It prevents. Well, yeah, there
Does
is.
Does it? I don't know. I'm not convinced of that.
Well, yeah.
Again, because I think happiness has declined for everybody, and especially for women over the time that we've had these.
Yeah,
laws.
but we can look at people who reportedly stay in marriages where they're unhappy and the long-term effects of that, even psychologically, health-wise. We can look at abusive relationships, situationships where the woman feels like she can't leave, even in an era of no-fault divorce.
That would be fault. Right. That's not no-fault divorce.
Yeah.
That's like my husband punched me in the face.
The problem with fault divorce, right, is that you're already instituting like a burden of proof onto like these abuse victims that would basically prolong the process of them getting away from their abusive partner, right?
Even now, you could separate and you could move out, the same night.
So basically, you're saying that you're okay with advocating for a system where they're basically not married in all the ways that matter, but just not legally?
I don't know what matters.
Well, they're not living together. They're not being intimate together. Their children are in basically separate homes because you're saying the woman can leave, but she cannot
I'm opposed
divorce.
to divorce, but we're speaking specifically now about no-fault divorce, because we're probably not going to agree on divorce broadly, but we might at least agree that no-fault divorce is very, very bad. Because you're saying, well, if one is not able to have a no-fault divorce, then they might have to stick with that spouse that they don't like that much, or the spouse got kind of fat and I don't like him anymore, whatever. But first of all, it's definitely better for the kids, in as much as the studies are reliable on this. Kids who grow up in a home of a mother and a father bound together in marriage do better across every single criterion. But furthermore, you're neglecting the negative aspects of divorce. I mean, when people do get divorced, and then if they have kids, and God forbid they get divorced, then if you introduce a stepfather into that relationship, the odds that those kids are abused or sexually assaulted go through the roof. The odds that and actually, at a more basic level, because we could rattle off the statistics all day, at the basic level, we recognize that the marriage is the fundamental political unit. The liberals say the individual is the fundamental political unit, but I think that's bunk. I think it's the family, because political means multiple people,
But just to go on the data really quick, I mean, they're staying in a household with conflict is worse than.
But they'll have the conflict in divorce. I mean, this is
no,
divorce
but
is in a way not
no.
Like the worst part about no fault, if I had to guess, would just be like the lack of, what would you call that? Wait, what's the word for one decision? Unilateral? Yeah. Like the lack of, or because Jesus. Because it only allows the one person to make the decision, the unilateral decision. Like that's probably the worst part about it. Because with fault divorce, you both have to come to an agreement. You know what I mean? It's like, but if one person doesn't want it, and there's problems that come with that on its own. I'm just saying. It's probably the main one because that's where it all falls apart later.
It's better for, like, yes, you're right, but also when you factor in education and socioeconomic status, a lot of that dissipates. So what's happening usually is that poor people are more likely. So it's all jumbled up. But also,
poor people are less likely to get married in the first place and more likely to have kids out of wedlock.
But being a child in a home with conflict between the parents is worse than having.
Right, but then why isn't the answer resolve the conflict?
Because people can't. We're human beings. You're the one who talking about human nature.
Yeah,
human
but
nature. We're clearly not successful at staying with one person forever.
We have been at a much higher rates in the recent past. So unless we're suggesting that no one can progress, that no one can improve their behavior.
That's a good point.
I think we can get better.
That's a really good point. Like, why isn't it ever like resolve the conflict? I've heard somewhere that some conflicts you can't resolve. And to me, that's just like because both people don't want to. Because both people don't want to let up. I think everybody can always compromise a little bit. But at what cost? I don't know. But like, what if a man marries a narcissistic woman? Get the fuck out of that, At that. And
I think part of the reason why divorce rates spiked is because the law encourage divorce rates to spike.
They
and because,
fight.
to give the red pill guys their due, because family courts have been horribly unjust to men, and because we have a liberal idol in our society of radical individualism that says, who cares what happens to my spouse or my kids?
When in recent history were we really good as a human species on lifelong, healthy bonds? Like serial monogamy
in the
seems
United
to be
States.
what we're good. I don't. But this thing, you don't know just because of someone staying together. Like there's a lot of people who had parents that stayed together that are all sorts of messed up because the parents fought. There was alcoholism in the house. There's all types of things.
They're all bad things.
Just
that
people
can happen.
staying together isn't isn't a good metric for childhood well-being.
Well, it's a good predictor of outcomes, but I totally grant to you that there are bad marriages. I just think if the law is then going to intervene, the way the law has intervened is by dissolving the marriages and creating all sorts of incentives to get divorced and to not get married in the first place. But if the law is going to intervene because of all these problems, why wouldn't the law intervene to make marriage more sustainable
the law isn't
encourage marriage.
The law really isn't intervening per se. People are choosing whether they want to apply this law to their life or not. So people are choosing that they want to get divorced. Or
if being single and divorced is a better deal than being married, we have a people problem. It's not anything other than that. People don't know we're not taught how to interact with people. We're on phones and shit. We're not taught how to work together. We're forced to work together for school projects, but we already know only one person ends up doing the work. So it's like, we're not taught and we're not incentivized and we're not rewarded, which that's how people remember how to do shit, to do the right thing. You're not like in terms of like a project or something. It's like you have somebody who sucks in school and then suddenly they do a school project and you're giving them an A. You could probably guarantee they probably didn't do the work. That's just like one thing. I don't know how we would fix that. Well, women need to pick better men. We need to stop absolving men of their own accountability. Love you. I'm tired of hearing that one. I think one of the issues, if I had to guess, and this isn't a male problem, but this is something that I've heard is like men will get into marriages hoping she never changes, but women expect them to. And if you're in this life, I feel like evolving is the best thing. This idea to like not change at all and like you did the hard work, now you can kick your feet back. Like I don't know. I wouldn't personally marry somebody like that, but I don't really think I'm cut out for marriage. But like, why is that? Why, like, I'm trying to understand. Do men actually think that, or is that just like one of those things you hear when somebody's going through a breakup? Like, do men want to evolve? Because the way I see it is like, I see a man who's like an athlete, super cool, gets married, has a child, now he's a dad. So now he's evolved to a dad. You know what I'm saying? It's like, you can't, you could try to still be the person you were before you had a kid, but it changes you ultimately in a good way. I don't know. The Happy Wife School. Look up the Happy Wife School. That's an oxymoron.
Choosing if they want to work things out. The difference is that now you have a choice on whether you think the person you're with is actually.
If you pick your car, why would you expect it to change? So you're saying that men do pick? Because right now they're acting like they don't. If you pick your car, why would you expect it to change? We're not cars, though. We're people. And it's like, are you buying a used car? It's going to have problems. It's going to break. Are you putting the work in to maintain it? Probably not. Baby. Are there people that actually do? I wait for it to break and then I'm like, let's do it. Project. Like, I find that expecting somebody not to change is putting them in a box that they fundamentally couldn't survive in. Like, you're putting them on a pedestal they're gonna fall off of. Like, I feel like when you allow people room to grow, then that person's allowed to like reinvent themselves in a good way and shed the bad shit. I don't know.
Somebody you can continue having a sustainable relationship with.
But
and if the answer is no.
I'm not talking about being forced to change. I'm not talking about being forced to change. I just mean like this white ladies, you better live with them first. Like, if a woman's going to do the domestic labor, like let's say do the laundry, and she's asked you to put your socks into the actual laundry basket, but you put them right next to them, and she's asked you, how many times does she have to ask before she just assumes you hate her? Like, honestly. And you guys are probably like, how would she assume that? Because when you choose not to do it when she knows she's asked you for it, this is why I can't get married. I already know I'd be fucking psycho. Then you're literally saying you are not deserving of me doing the thing that makes your life or easier. You're deserving of me making your life difficult. I don't know why. It irks me just thinking about it. Thankfully, I've always been with people that you don't even need to tell them more than once. It's just that they get it. But I also remember them telling me stuff too. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but if I was doing something that pissed them off, I would change it. I don't know. It's just that the ones that choose to disrespect you, because it is a respect thing, then it's like you don't even like them. Think about it. If you have the girl, let's say the guy was dating a girl for 10 years. They break up. He meets a new girl, gets married to her in 6 months. Like that, you knew you weren't going to marry her for 10 years, but you stayed with her. That's the ultimate form of betrayal, other than cheating. I don't know. There's something about somebody knowingly wasting somebody's time that I feel like is fucked up. It's one thing if you guys just didn't work out, but I don't know. Girl or guy.
And to quote Simone de Beauvoir, that famous feminist, if you give people a brand new choice, if you give people a preferable choice, given their social circumstances, they might just take it.
And women fare off this idea that women are, to fight back on the red pill, that women are just incentivized to divorce. Women fare off far worse financially after divorce. They're way more likely to seek government assistance, be in poverty.
Totally.
They're less likely to repartner. So this idea that women are just running to the divorce court to get money is just not true.
Well, no, they are divorcing at much higher rates. That's undeniable. And I'm totally with you. Divorce is horrible for women. So sometimes feminists make the argument that I think perhaps
there's a special place in hell for women that make men raise children that aren't theirs. And sometimes I'll watch these shows on TikTok. They're like the judge type shows where somebody's trying to get alimony or child support or something. And when they talk about, I just watched one. We're going to do an entire episode on it. I saved it, but I'm still waiting for the paternity test. But essentially, it was a girl and a guy. The guy was significantly older, and she was seeking child support for a child that's 3 years old now. And the guy very calmly, very politely, soft-spoken was I would like to have paternity established first. And I feel like that's valid. I feel like that's just granted. I feel like that should be a thing when you're at the hospital, but I guess we're still in this archaic time thinking that it's going to make her look bad if you demand something like that. She's a hoe. Really? We got people selling their buttholes for $4.99, and now dad in the hospital room wants to make sure this is his child, make sure it's all good and before he signs a fucking document. That's where we're at. That's where we're okay. But yeah, a woman wears white. A woman doesn't have to wait. A woman who is not pure can still wear white on a wedding day. Why is it such a big deal? You know what I mean? The only argument is that it makes the mom look like a hoe. It's like you're already setting things up for distrust. It's well, yeah, 30% of the kids in the US are being fathered by dads that aren't theirs. I also found another video on TikTok. Oh my God, this one's wild. You got to be careful though, because people will say anything for TikTok, so I can't verify it. But it was a woman who worked with really rich people, really wealthy. She was a nanny or something. She's these moms and dads will talk, the moms, I believe. The moms will talk about just anything right in front of me without thinking that I know, and I nanny for this other family, and here they are talking about how they're telling me directly that so-and-so's dad isn't their dad and that it's actually his brother who's the father. And I'm like, whoa, wait. You're telling me that there's wealthy people. See, I could see it happening and I'm not saying it's right, but I can't see it in wealthy situations because it's the only reason I could fathom, which is not right either, is a woman can't get child support from the real dad. Maybe he's like a convict or something. So they go to like the beta provider. But then you're talking about very wealthy families, and this is going on. And dad has no idea. And it's his brother. His uncle is his father. And Jesus fucking Lord have no idea. Like, I don't know if people are aware of this now, but with genealogy or whatever, the DNA and me shit, like families with these big secrets are being exposed just over doing these DNA tests. Like, you can only lie for so long, and you really affect, like, think about it. If you think that so-and-so is your actual parent, and this parent has, I don't know, schizophrenia, you know, and then you meet somebody who also has schizophrenia in their family, you don't want to, let's say you don't want to pass it down. So you end up getting like a surrogate or something with like a different egg. It's like that decision was made solely on the idea that this person was dad. But if this isn't dad, do you see what I'm saying? Like, that's just like one issue. There's like more personal problems that come with it, but that's just one.
We were getting to a little earlier, the argument that you just contradicted, which is, oh, divorce is so good for women. It's a wonderful choice. They really need to have this choice. It makes their...
I need to go drink my beauty collagen smoothie. So I'm going to end it here. I'll be back. I have to look back in the chat and see what call-in show y'all wanted to do. But if you have ideas, put it in the comments below. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Our likes are like down. Okay. Can we get those up? Love you. Bye.